Hey everyone, I'm Lucy.
And I'm Tamor.
And season 2 of Westworld is finally here.
Finally,
it's
the
been
long wait is over.
So long. And of course, here on GameSpot Universe, we're going to be giving you weekly breakdowns of every episode because that show is dense.
It requires breaking down extensively.
So we've been going through frame by frame to pick out everything that they are leaving for us. Every breadcrumb.
Robot/human by robot/human.
So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single breakdown. Tamor, Season 2, Episode 1, Journey into Night. Let's go. As you'll know from Season 1, Westworld is a dense show, so please forgive us because we don't have an auto cue in this office. But we've gone through frame by frame to basically uncover everything. So let's start at the beginning with the brand new title sequence, which we've lost the horse.
Horse is gone, but we got a buffalo out of
So
it.
still very symbolic of the
4
Old
legs,
West.
chunky, it'll do.
Still very symbolic of the Old West. We also have
A child.
a child, a host being created, a female host holding onto a baby. That's very Battlestar Galactica to me, isn't
Very
it?
much
You know, like
so,
Cylons and humans
Yeah.
coming together to create the new generation. But also, there's a lot of water, and there is the Man in Black's hat kind of floating through everything. So
All key parts of both this episode and we imagine the season going forward.
yes, so obviously in season 1 we were following Dolores' journey through the maze. Now in season 2, which is referred to as The Door, we are going to be following definitely the Man in Black. It's his journey to find the door and what lies beneath.
And maybe
Great
buffalo.
film. Maybe buffalo. There's also the water. So
Yeah.
that's actually coming up in the first scene. We see a conversation between Bernard speaking with Dolores, and he says, "I dreamt I was on an ocean with you and the others." So this ocean is also something we see at the end of the episode. We'll discuss it in a bit, but it's something very symbolic, very important to this season, important enough to even be in the opening credits. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
And Dolores says something very interesting to Bernard.
It's been some time, Bernard. You don't know who you are, do you?
Do you?
Do you?
So in season 1, we know that we had roughly like 3-ish different timelines.
Yeah.
We had Westworld before the park opened, shortly after it opened, and 30 years after that last timeline. We know that this season is going to be in different timelines already because they showed us that in the very first scene with Bernard. He is skipping through a bunch of different things.
So you get to see him and Dolores in what looks like a futuristic, but could be like real world modern day.
Yeah, so there is a theory that Arnold actually based Dolores off a real person, and from the trailers they theorized that that was what this meeting was.
After that, you get to see Ford's death, which we're very acquainted with,
Yep.
unfortunately. And then you get to see a skeleton, a host being built. And one important thing you get to see is your boy, Peter Abernathy, who's been upgraded on the cast list.
Yeah, he has.
And is very, very important now.
Yeah, so he's got 30 odd years of park data floating around in his head. We know that he's been upgraded to a cast regular. We're going to see a lot of Peter Abernathy that's been introduced in this first episode.
So the next scene slots in roughly 2 weeks after the events of the last final episode of season 1. And it's on the beach and Bernard is waking up. There's a few people around. It's like a search and rescue team, military style, so they're not like...
See Stubbs.
Yeah,
Stubbs is alive.
Stubbs alive.
If he doesn't die on screen, you know he's still alive.
We also introduced a new character called Mei Ling, who you may recognize as Georgina from 10 out of 10 film Get Out. And they are looking for a bunch of people. It's not quite clear who they're looking for.
It's done in a very
Yeah, like-
secretive sort of way. So she's holding these cards, going through them, and we see that Bernard is one of them, but we don't know, and he's high priority extraction.
Yeah.
We don't know if that's because they think he's a human or if they know he's a host.
Yeah. We're also introduced to slimy character Carl Strand,
Oh,
who's like peak CEO of a company.
I always like the weird ones. I like Littlefinger, don't I? Yes, and his meeting, when we first meet him, he's meeting with a bunch of, well, Chinese Marines. I did some Googling. This actually is good because it helps us place Westworld, the Delos parks, geographically, because everyone was kind of wondering, where are you? If the Chinese Marines are there and he's saying, no, you signed over rights to your island, to Delos, it kind of gives us an indication that it's somewhere off the coast of mainland China.
This is our part of China. And then we have Carl saying, basically, we need to figure out what happened here. From then, swiftly moving on, Bernard's like, yeah, let's go over there. So we get to find another host.
Yes.
Ghost Nation boy.
Yes.
And we cut him open, and we finally get to see, not finally, like we see the evolution of a host. So they used to be quite mechanical.
We've seen him in previous like timelines. We've seen when Dolores was first being built, she's very much how you'd expect the inner workings of a robot to be. But over time, and due for cost reasons actually, they changed to bioorganic printing, bioorganic 3D printing, but we've never really had an indication of the proper inner workings of the host. If you think about it, of course they weren't going to 3D print
A brain.
billions of neurons.
Yeah.
Instead we have that, like, it looks like a light bulb.
Yeah, it looks like one of those cute little mini computers that you get.
Yeah.
It's like the future of Raspberry Pi.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Like,
But
it's the brain.
is the brain of the host, and it is submerged in a very critical, you would say, liquid.
It looks like coconut water, not
It
gonna
does.
lie.
Comes into play a little bit later.
Yeah, so that's going to be important later on. We also get to see something else that's really, really key. It's on the inside of the skull, a maze.
The maze. So obviously the people inside the park, people like Arnold knew about it. It was Arnold's game for the hosts to find consciousness. But now Delos are kind of like, ooh, what the hell's going on here? What other things don't we know are happening inside our park with our billion-dollar IPs?
So the next thing we see is Dolores getting a bit crazy.
Dolores slash Wyatt.
Yeah, slash Wyatt, that's the important thing. So she's got a bunch of guests and she kind of announces, like launches into this speech about, you know, do you know where you are? You're in a dream. You're in my dream. Which
That sounds familiar
is
to
familiar,
me.
yes, as Lucy very astutely picked up on.
It's the exact conversation that she had with Ford back in season 1.
Episode 5.
Episode 5, you're in a dream, you're in my dream kind of thing.
Yeah,
She kind of asks them all the questions that she was asked, you know, when they are trying to make sure that the host is still adhering to their programming.
There's a bunch of things as the episode does to kind of blur the line or
Yes.
like create that role reversal.
Yes.
Where they're like swapping and, you know, trying to blur the line between who's real and who's not, who's human, who's host, who's guest, etc., etc.
So at the end of season 1, Dolores, we're made to believe that Dolores reaches consciousness and she starts to make decisions by herself kind of thing. But what's interesting in this scene that stuck out for me particularly is that she seems to, she might be acting of her own free will, but it doesn't feel like she's an actual human person with her own conscious desires and thoughts, because it feels like she's very much got two conflicting personalities that are sort of melding at the moment. So you'll notice that her accent changes depending on who she's talking to. Like if she's talking to Teddy, she has the very soft southern drawl, Dolores accent, the rancher's daughter. But when she speaks as Wyatt, she's
More
a lot
violent,
more
more-
hard and violent.
The rancher's daughter looks to see the beauty in you. Possibilities. But Wyatt sees the ugliness.
And it just doesn't feel like a cohesive blend just yet.
So that's another philosophical question that they would like. Technically, she has reached consciousness, but like, if she's still just the amalgamation of two programmed personalities, does that mean she's really transcended into anything different?
Yeah. But what's the nice little nod to the phrase that we all know from season 1 is when they ride away and they leave the guests to die, to basically hang themselves, she goes,
Doesn't look like anything to me.
And that's interesting because she was, last time she said that, she was looking at the picture of the future and was unable to perceive that reality. Now she's saying like, I'm unable to perceive your reality, you're in my world.
Flashback again, so this scene with the man in black waking up takes place the night after Ford's dinner. He's waking up, there's a wolf hanging around. We've seen that wolf before.
That wolf, and we're not talking about Game of Thrones here because clearly that wolf is on loan from Westeros, but we have seen that wolf in season 1.
Yes.
At various points, it was like tied to Teddy and
Dolores
mostly. But now we have the man in black seeing it. We're still not quite sure what that wolf means and whether it represents anything, but there's been various theories and ideas posited, and one of that could be like, it's tying into the Native American interpretation of what a wolf represents. In that culture, I'm not an expert on it, so I use the internet to do this, but as far as I can tell, wolves are like revered and tied to like loyalty, strength, and also like self-awareness and self-consciousness and packs and that kind of stuff. So there's some themes with the idea of what a wolf is and what it represents in that culture that could translate over to hosts in a big way. But I imagine that wolf is going to keep showing up and it will be explored further.
Our favorite disgruntled Englishman, Lee Sizemore, head of narrative, is back. When we see him, he's getting attacked by a host who seems to be off his loop. You'll recognize that host from season 1. He is the fake Wyatt that Ford had him make to be the big antagonist of his narrative.
Still up to his cannibalizing ways.
Still up to the cannibalizing ways. He actually repeats pretty much verbatim the exact speech that Sizemore wrote for him that he was practicing in season 1, which is kind of like a nice little book ending of that. And Maeve obviously shows up. Maeve reveals to him that all the powers that she has and everything she's done to kind of get there.
I've got admin access.
God damn. We also get this nice little interaction when Sizemore says to Maeve, "You were severely malfunctioning when you were given to me," and that would have been just after the man in black killed her daughter in front of her, killed her, and Maeve was the one to reveal the existence of the maze to the man in black, and that's when she properly started freaking out. So it's interesting to see that we kind of get like a little timeline of her backstory, and that was the point where they reassigned her from being a rancher to being to working in the Sweetwater brothel. And after Sizemore tries to dob her in and get her killed by the humans, she eventually makes it through to the poolside bar, and she meets Hector again.
He's still alive.
He's still alive.
Still drinking.
What a guy. But no, their relationship is something that's very interesting to me. But I feel like there is something more there. I feel like maybe in a past narrative they were together. Maybe he could have even been the father of her daughter.
Yeah, maybe.
It feels like there's something there, and I feel like them getting together like this and him blindly following her, whatever she does, and her coming back, not only for her daughter, I think she partly came back for him as well.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be something more.
Yeah.
With
I mean,
those
it's
two.
interesting because she's off her loop. And
Absolutely.
she still seems to be obsessed, like able to form that connection with a person. Again, could be another indication of, sentience and awareness.
Yeah, but have you seen the actor who plays Hector?
So Bernard, Charlotte, and a few of the other disgruntled guests are on the hunt for an outpost where they can get to safety and perhaps escape.
There are lots of questions sparked by this scene when Charlotte goes, no, there's another hidden outpost over here. That woman has a very intimate knowledge of that park in kind of a very suspicious way. Obviously, Delos wanted to siphon all the information out of the park anyway. She was very heavily involved in that operation with Teresa. But knowing the layout of the park, knowing where all the manual overrides and stuff are, and a park that is hundreds of miles big, it's very, very strange to me, and it feels like there's something else at work.
There's also like her personality. It's like
Very
like
colored.
she's very ready to get into action mode. Maybe it's just her being her, because she was shown off as being quite a strong character in the previous season. But here she's like, Bernard, pull it together, we got stuff to do. She gets her boots on and is like, let's roll.
Let's go.
Yeah.
So once they're in this hidden facility, we get our first look at those
Weird dudes, man.
faceless hosts that freaked me out.
Yeah.
What you can see also is that I don't know who these, like if you look in the back window, there are these two figures walking around. I don't know if they're human or if they're hosts or whatever they are, but those guys, I don't like them hanging around.
Interestingly, before they go in there, like they touch that thing and it reads DNA. So nothing rumbled yet, and everything went fine for Bernard, but no one's kind of like figured it out. But that could be an interesting thing that comes up later.
I feel like he's always like one step away from just being
and
found
I
out
think
at
he
this
will
point.
continue to be like that throughout the series.
We also discover that the embargo on communications was set by Delos because they don't want anyone going in and out of that park until they locate their insurance policy, which is Abernathy. So Charlotte's like, no, package is sent. He was put on a train. Plot hole. I hate to be the pedantic person because I realized this when I was watching. All the hosts have explosives built into their neck. They can't go outside park confines without exploding and dying. Obviously, that's not going to be ideal if he has all of the information in his head, if that explodes, and if he's their insurance policy. There wasn't a scene in season 1 where that was his explosive was taken out.
Maybe it happened off screen and Charlotte was like, deactivate this.
I don't feel
It
like
seems like an important thing.
Feels like a weird thing to sort of miss out.
Yeah.
But also Bernard finally discovers, Delos have ulterior motives.
Yeah.
And want to get all that info.
Like Facebook. Then we return to the man in black.
Let's refer to him as Bill. So when he was young William, when he first comes to the park, he's referred to as William.
Yeah.
Now he's the man in black. Let's call him Bill. That other board member refers to him as Bill.
Yeah. So he's basically realizing that he's getting exactly what he wanted out of
This
this.
is the game, this is the
Yeah.
park, this is everything
This is-
he wanted.
yeah.
He wants actual stakes, because in order for him to win, someone else has to lose.
And then he basically has that told to him by a young Ford.
Yeah, that young little robot Ford who's hitting puberty.
Yeah,
They have
and
to
like
get
his
rid of
voice
him.
is getting up and down.
Well, they've mixed in Anthony Hopkins with him.
So he basically appears and reveals the existence of the door.
So he
And
said, you bested Arnold's game, you got through the maze.
now it's time to play my game. And his game sounds well weird. So then he says a bunch of cryptic things, and Bill's like, for God's sake, stop being cryptic. So he says, the game begins where you end, it ends where you begin. The game will find you.
So, I have a theory about that. I think that place, the place where you began, blah, 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 is Sweetwater.
Yeah.
So Sweetwater is obviously where he met Dolores, where he fell in love with her all those years ago. It's also the place where Dolores forgot about him. And when his nature began to change and when he sort of discovered that he was actually disgruntled with how the park actually worked, and he realized that he couldn't win with the park as it currently was, like with you know, hosts being unable to kill humans. There's also another bit to that, is that when he's removing the bullet from his arm, they start to play the Sweetwater music. So I think that journey is going to lead him to Sweetwater, and I also think that maybe Dolores is going to head there too. And
The
I
game
think
will
that's-
find you.
The game will find you. I have also written here, is the game a person, and is it just Dolores?
Yeah, it's,
so does she have free will at all? Is she just part of a bigger meta game?
Is it a reference to Compton Rapper the game?
No, it might be actually. I don't know. So Teddy and Dolores are having a chat.
A moment.
He doesn't, you know, necessarily believe in what she's doing. He just wants to make her happy. You know, oh darling, I'll kill hundreds of people
and
for
there's
you.
there's like that, they keep cutting to that, like the bit earlier where she's talking to the other people. Every time she was being a bit violent, it would cut to Teddy, and Teddy would be like, is this allowed?
I don't want this. But then Angela comes back. Angela, who's proving to be a very loyal henchwoman to Wyatt/Dolores, and says, you know, we found it. Dolores is like, come on, you have to see this, you have to see the truth. This to me says there's going to be some processing plant, there's going to be some remote diagnostics facility. He's going to discover what they really are. Back to Charlotte and Bernard, and this sequence had so many big revelations that I sort of was losing my mind a little bit at my desk as I was watching. We get confirmation that hosts have a subconscious network link to those around them, which is basically like ants in a colony, so they can pass bits of information. It's basically meant to be so that narratives don't cross over and collide, but really what it can be used for is tracking. You can send out a little query to one, and queries all around.
Basically
all ones around
ping
them.
for information.
So having the hosts networked in such a way kind of gives you a little bit of information, like if it was used in a malicious way, like if one of them overheard the trigger phrase, violent delights have violent ends, it might actually just spark all of them around it, like a virus, I guess. But so it's a very, very cool revelation.
So with that in mind, Charlotte asks Bernard to locate Abernathy. He has a little bit of a freak out and critical failure, and this is where we see that Bernard's in a bad way.
Yeah, I think he has like 8% of his cortical fluid left.
And he's got like not very long left until complete system shutdown.
43 minutes, 12 seconds.
And he's out of it.
That's not 0.2 of an hour.
We also get
0.72 of an hour.
We also get to see some of the things that he's afflicted with.
So his brain is basically shutting down. He's entering his death subroutine, and a terrifying robotic voice is saying everything he has. This stuff, if you Google what all of these afflictions are, is the setup that Bernard is an unreliable narrator. So let's go through them. So loss of motor functions, obviously he is having trouble. Cognitive dissonance, which means he's having inconsistent thoughts and beliefs. Time slippage. Now we've already seen this throughout this episode. He is flitting between the night of the incident and 2 weeks later. Aphasia, which is the inability to comprehend and formulate language. And the final one, which is the one that is most interesting and the one that will throw off the entire season, because we won't be able to believe a single damn thing that Bernard says if we see anything from his point of view, is prosopagnosia, which is face blindness. It means that you cannot comprehend one person from another because you just don't see the key features, you can't put them all together, you can't recognize faces. And in a show where people, and there is so much mystery and people are
Yeah.
interchangeable and everything.
That's a huge, huge plot device that they are
God
going
damn it.
that they are going to screw with everyone
We
using.
are gonna get messed up.
Yeah. Despite all that, Bernard manages to buy himself a little bit of time by grabbing some of the fluid in the brain from the host and injecting it into himself. Just stabilizes him a little bit. He's still in a rough way and is still on borrowed time, but it means that he can function slightly.
And he goes immediately into another time slippage, so he goes 2 weeks into the future. One of the things that I was looking out for in particular is the decomposition of the bodies. That is kind of like a good indicator of where you are on the timeline. Also, he's with Strand, he's with Stubbs, he's with Costa, and there are some big revelations. So they're on the hunt for anomalies in the park, like a bloody Bengal tiger lying on the ground, which Stubbs says is from Park 6. So Googling, Bengal tigers are from India, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Bhutan. So I don't know what these other parks could be.
Aladdin World.
But there's also the revelation that the parks all border each other and the hosts shouldn't be able to cross
yeah.
those hard borders. So big revelation about the setup of Delos World, if you want to call it that. And then we also get another little bit of a nugget of information, which is very interesting.
And that nugget is the embargo has finally been lifted, so they can now figure out what's going on and use the information available to them properly.
But what does that mean? That means Peter Abernathy must have reached Delos in some way because he was the only reason that the embargo was still there.
Yeah.
So where the hell is Abernathy? What does Delos have?
Why isn't his head exploded?
Why didn't his head explode? And then finally, another massive reveal. We talked about this at the beginning, all the water in the new opening credits. This ocean has appeared, there's all these bodies in it, and who do we see?
It's Teddy.
It's Teddy.
Oh,
So this is 2 weeks later. Teddy is like full on dead in there, floating around. We don't know where Dolores is. And Bernard says,
I killed them. All of them.
who is the he in this? Is it himself?
Ford.
Is it Ford? Is it Arnold? Is it
Why-
unnamed other? Ah, I need episode 2.
What is happening?
So there we are, that was our breakdown of Westworld Season 2, Episode 1, Journey into Night. Pretty exhaustive, I
Very dense
feel.
episode, full of information to scrounge and put together.
Yeah, very, very dense episode. If you think that we missed anything, or if you have your own theories about what's going to happen this season, make sure to stick them in the comments box below. Come find us on Twitter. I'm at Lucy James Games.
I'm at Tomohei.
And make sure to subscribe to GameSpot Universe because we're going to be breaking down every new episode each week, and you don't want to miss it because this is the best show to nerd out about.
Oh yeah.
We will see you next time. When do we go to Shogun World?
Take me to Japan!